don't have a base.
No, I don't have.
It died during practice.
Oh, I don't have mine.
We need somebody to check
My
it.
jeans.
The office might have one.
Oh,
Oh,
do I need to change?
you have to be here for roll call on that, I'll go check, because I don't have to be here for that first part. Anybody need a drink as long as I'm going that way?
Roger, if they have one, if they don't,
Oh, no
I
worries.
forgot my jeans and my
Just one
name
moment.
tag, and then my wife just texted and said, hey, I'm here with this. Driving my state asset.
They're both smooth, but they're.
What?
Oh, that's it. Go all the way down to the bottom.
I saw it.
Okay.
Aren't we doing this?
Hi, how you doing?
That's kind of an open-ended.
I don't know. If
Yeah.
he has me do a roll call, then I guess he's gonna change. I don't know. That's, or maybe he's not gonna change, I don't know.
I don't wanna do, because I feel like it's my responsibility.
You can go right next door and shake. Well, I don't know if his office is open. You know.
You can't have these, you can't have some of these.
I don't have YouTube on here, Cindy.
I don't know. I gotta talk to our lawyer about that.
He can't have an email that concerns personnel. It's protected. Well, personnel policy, but.
No, there's a semicolon.
Yeah, personnel, yeah, he can't have. I think he means, I don't know, but what, the way I read, the conglomeration of it. That he's asking for emails between board members and the superintendent that
Right.
concern
The conference.
personnel, policies, budget.
No, he has a semicolon there.
I know, but I'm just saying that as I read the context of this, all of it, it sounds like he's trying to group it. I don't know.
Dr.
But I'm
Schmidt
just
has
saying.
this, I assume, since his email address is on it.
Two handles for or
I think
request
just,
for?
just like.
I would assume it's our attorney.
Didn't take too much right now, like,
I'll have to talk to Dr. Schmidt and see what he
it's funny.
prefers to. I have to assume he's gonna prefer to go to the attorney, but. All right, are we ready?
You're live,
How long have we been live?
I think, the whole time, just to let you know.
Okay. Calling this meeting to order at 6:34 PM on December 19th, 2018. Stand for the pledge of allegiance, please. Mr. Razzie, would you like to lead us?
No.
Please lead us.
Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, can you get a roll call, please?
Mr. Allen.
Here.
Mrs. Combs.
Here.
Mr. Smith.
Here.
Mrs. Swayze.
Here.
Mr. Underwood.
Here. Brings us to 3.0, modification approval of the agenda. Do I have any motions to modify the agenda?
I move that we need to modify 6.02 to approve minutes of November 14th, vice November 21st, 2018 regular board meeting.
Do I have any other motions to modify the agenda? Okay, do I have a second for the motion?
I'll second.
All right, call for the vote, please.
Mr. Allen.
Aye.
Ms. Combs.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Mrs. Swayze.
Aye.
Mr. Underwood.
Aye. Brings us to 4.0, student performances. Do we have any?
No,
All right, 5.0, open forum.
none.
Okay. Brings us to 6.0, consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Call for the vote, please.
Mr. Allen.
Aye.
Ms. Combs.
Aye.
Mrs. Smith.
Aye.
Mrs. Swayze.
Aye.
Mr. Underwood.
Aye. Brings us to 7.01, superintendent comments. He's out and will return shortly. So let's just mix it up. Unless anyone has any objections, we'll start with the DAC.
Okay, sounds good.
This month, we don't have a whole lot. We just approved our meeting dates for the rest, or for the beginning of next year. We're gonna meet on January 10th to look over the proposed budget for next year. We received that on Thursday. So we're just starting to look at it. That's what we'll be looking at the January meeting to bring to you. And January 10th will be our next meeting, and then February 14th, we discussed the NWA testing for both schools, and we showed how the schools were improving on almost everything. So everything seems to be moving definitely in the right direction.
Awesome.
Thank
And that's all I have.
Sweet, short and sweet.
Were you given a line item budget or just a summary?
We got the line item budget also.
Oh, you got the line item. Lucky you. Okay. Awesome.
you, ma'am.
That's all you have? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that brings us to, I guess, the board, since the superintendent's not here. Mr. Swayze, would you like to start us off?
Yeah, the very first thing I'm gonna do is read something to you.
Okay?
I found this at Casby, and this is something I think we all need to remember. Remember always that our first and greatest concern must be the education and welfare of every student in our schools. That's it.
Okay. Mr. Allen, love the haircut?
Awesome. I don't really have a whole lot other than, as I've been through the schools lately and just kind of talking with different staff, I kind of dropped in and did a surprise walkthrough on Prairie Heights the other day. Sorry I missed you, but I went ahead and spoke with staff that was there. And it seems like culture, attitude, environment, everything just seems happy and positive. Again, you know, nobody had anything bad to say at Prairie Heights. Everybody, hey, you know, thanks for swinging by. Oh, hey, we're loving it. Same thing that I see here as I go through this school. I'm over here a lot, but just good job to all the leadership, district, both individual schools, top down. Great job. Thank you, guys.
That's it, sir?
That'll do it.
Okay, Ms. Combs?
I want to give a good job out to Mrs. Dunn. She did a wonderful job with the elementary Christmas performance yesterday. You can definitely see her passion. She's up there, she's moving, she's singing, you know, and that after a teacher that's been in a district for so long, it's normal to see that passion go away. So with her being in this district for such a long time, I want to say that her passion is still there. The kids love it. You can definitely see they get into it. So I just want to say good job to her. And then Mrs. Conrad and the other community members for putting on last weekend's Winter Wonderland at the elementary. That was set up with Santa. They got a stocking and a little present, and then there was lots of crafts set up, ornaments painting, there was pine cones. My daughter enjoyed it. I ended up decorating 2 ornaments with her and a pine cone, and ended up helping stay in and cleaning up. And I was just like, we're just gonna go in, check in. 3 hours later, I'm like, okay, this event was really great. So it was planned well, the kids enjoyed it. So I just wanna say thank you. We appreciate what y'all do. And then I just hope that all the parents, students, staff, administration, have a great holiday and enjoy your break.
Mr. Smith?
Mine is similar to Ms. Combs. I know this is a really tough year, part of the year, because there's so much going on. You have all the programs, you have all the festivals, you have finals, you have grades due, you have finishing out of any projects, getting ready for projects, and just thank you for all those that are juggling many things so that this last week of school is smooth for the students, and that they can leave here and be able for this week to show off some of the, not show off, but demonstrate some of the great things they've learned, and they do. And I know it's a lot of work, especially as staff members wear many hats. And the Christmas break is well deserved for the students and the staff. And I know there'll be a lot of work going on during the break by all those that work when we're not watching, such as our custodians, our maintenance crew. They do a hats off to them for all the work they do, because a lot of times they're the unsung heroes of why we work as well as we do as an organization. If without the buses running, the kids wouldn't get here and we wouldn't have a purpose. But also thanks to the administration for being the one that herds all those cats, so that they're in the right direction and moving towards that direction, as Ed so eloquently said, you know, we're here for the students and for their education. Everything else is secondary, and it all should work towards that one focus and mission. So thank you for all that you do.
Yeah, I don't really have anything new. I just want to, say congratulations to everybody for getting through the year so far, and happy holidays to everybody. So we switched things around since you're out, so you're up, Dr. Schmidt.
I was successful in finding a block
I saw
and a
that.
bottle of water, so
Thank
that's
you.
good. A couple updates for you. We do have we have 2 cameras installed in the bus barn area, actually 3 in the bus barn area. I want to see one more camera that's higher up that looks down on it a little bit better. The area where we did have someone break in, you can barely see it because it's at a distance on our camera shots. So that has been done, and one more will be installed. The other thing is that we already addressed, so I won't go too far, the Winter Wonderland, the concert both at Prairie Heights, and there was also the same kind of performance here at Junior Senior High School. The nice thing about this time of year, it can be stressful, is the kids get an opportunity to do those performances. And that reminds us talents aren't just academic, and it's fun to see the whole child. You come out, you can sing, you can dance, you can act, public speaking. We even had one particular child at the elementary level who we figured would not want to do it in the night or the day of the performance yesterday. She's like, I'm going to do it. And just to see that one moment for that one student, see a couple of us staff members who knew about that, we were all just like smiling when she went up to do that, because like that's an example of a success story that you don't necessarily see. So that's a lot of fun. To also mention that we will have our audit on our January budget, our January board agenda, and so we'll be able to have
As an action.
it will be as an action, actually, yes. What happens there is you get a presentation, and then there's a document that has to be signed as well and sent to the state. It actually goes to the Office of the State Auditor, I think OSA is the acronym. And we'll talk about the budget, amended budget a little bit later. Staff will be receiving, and I'm saying this out loud as I just now realized I left the somewhat fun task for all of you in my car. So I will send someone out to go to my car, and that is your signing of cards. Staff will get their cards and their gift card tomorrow during the Christmas on the Prairie event is when they'll be handed out to everybody. So just so you know, we have all that ready to go and staged. Do that part for you. And we need to sign 60 cards. Just so you know. The other thing is that when we come into January, it's the beginning of a new semester rather. And this year we went ahead taking the lead of the principal here at Junior Senior High School. All schools did our NWA middle of the year assessment in December. So now there's data that we have, staff have an opportunity to look at things and start January knowing where our kids are and what they need versus what we've historically done is we wait and do that around the 3rd of the last week of January because we do that NWA too. We've done it in January. So pushing it up a little bit earlier means we can hit the second semester a little bit faster in terms of what adjustments we might need to make for kids. And so we're looking forward to that. In terms of the NWA data, what's awesome is that we are seeing right at half of our kids, K through 12, were at or above the 65th percentile for growth. And as you guys know from having to talk to our reconsideration, our growth has been our strength. Our achievement has not necessarily been that strength. And part of the reason United was saying they looked at K1-2 and wasn't sure the growth was there for moving into the higher grades. 65th percentile, the way that's done is they take all the kids in the fall who take NWA and they know what their RIT score is, which is their scale score, the number. So it might be, let's say, 108, 188. all kids in the country who score 188 are put into a pot. Then they compare, how'd you do at the middle of the year? That group. And so if you're at 50th percentile, it means you were in the middle of performance of that whole group. Well, that essentially means you're growing at the rate you should grow for a year. 65th is our target because that means we're outpacing the center. And if we're outpacing the center, it also means our achievement has to be on a positive trend.
Right.
So when I say half our kids in just the first semester alone are on that track right now. And that's awesome. I know when I put that in the teacher evaluation for MSL that your goal is to get this, it was like, no way, they can't do that. Not because they didn't think the kids could, but they were afraid of it. And some of the teachers are almost 100, the goal is 80%. Some of the teachers are already there. And some had to be reminded, you only have 2 more kids to get there and you're already there. And I picked 80% intentionally because 81% means exceeds. Based on our percentages and how many kids you have, no one's gonna hit 80. So you're really either gonna be just short or you're gonna be exceeds. And that should be an exceeds comment. If you can get 80% of our kids 65th percentile on growth, either from beginning to middle to the end, or beginning to the end. So you can do it any of those 3. So if we could do that, man, 80% of our kids then are on a trajectory, they're growing faster, which means our achievement is coming up. So to a degree, it was almost unintentional because they still couldn't wrap their head around what 80% of 65. So they're learning now what that means. And that's a testament, I just say, overall, that
That's great.
in general, our teachers are doing a fine job in the classroom with what we do with the kids. So I'm going to end on that happy note. And, hopefully tomorrow we'll see you at Christmas on the Prairie here. And if you are, you can obviously go around and shake hands with our staff and say thank you for your work.
Mr. President, can I add one thing on that?
Of course you may have an alibi.
Thank you, sir. I wanted to let the board know that our principal and assistant over here have set up a program for our middle school that are having trouble with their classes. 2 nights a week, they get to stay after, or can stay after, and they'll help them with their homework and their schoolwork. And I think it's working great. I wanted to make sure you guys all knew that because it is helping the 6th graders. It's helping them all, but the 6th graders are the ones in my team that are struggling. And I think it's great.
Irene reminded me, the Raptor system at the front door entry, we're making, it'll go live when we come back, so in the next semester, and January. And all that is you come in, there's a little machine, it looks like a pencil sharpener, but there's a lid on top. You just drop your driver's license or your military ID, and I know Rochelle knows all the other possible things you can drop in there. And then it does a quick background check, and just make sure there isn't anything on there that we, as stewards for our kids, would not want them in our building. Meaning, is there a sex offender charge, offense against child, those kinds of things.
Bolo.
Yeah, so.
So is that Raptor gonna be inside the trap then?
No, because our design, we aren't quite designed that way. We have talked about that because Irene would really love to have trap at Prairie Heights, and we've talked about where that could be. It would be a little bit of an expense to do some of that, so we're.
You can't use that 4-year area as a trap? You already kind of have a trap at Prairie Heights.
Right, but the problem there is that you have to have a staff member manning the Raptor thing. So that's the issue. Because we've talked about moving it. Last year we had a conversation about moving the trap even further into the junior senior high school and what that would entail, or if we could do it just up a certain height and leave it open up above. I think Chief had some concerns about that in terms of can the door be open wide enough, kids can get in and out,
Right.
that kind of thing. It doesn't mean we've forgotten about it, it just means that it's gonna be a financial cost to do that. So we'll start doing that. The deal is that we really are intending to do it for everybody every time. So for some of our regular frequent flyers, they may get a little frustrated. So part of what we have already agreed to is we're going to start the system, and then, and I look out because it's the 18 conversation. If we get to a point where we're annoying people or we get disgruntled from the regulars, then we need to look at what we can do, and it might be maybe they get a pass for 30 days before we have to do it again. But something.
So whatever you decide, you should document somewhere.
Yes, yes. But we do have, it's actually, we have the whole protocol lined out in a document.
Oh, okay.
The
great.
regulars are gonna be the staff that's coming in and out, like Joseph, Chuck, all those guys,
Yeah,
right?
they get a pass because they're
Okay.
employed, but like coaches coming in every day.
I got a key to the back door.
You don't want to do
I'm
that.
kidding,
That's-
I'm kidding.
That leads us all another direction.
I'm kidding.
We can take that away.
It'd probably be nice if we set up something and gave them like cardboard, almost like you get at conventions, that's good for 30 days. Because for those that are here all the time, we shouldn't make it difficult to be a volunteer.
That's right, that's the point.
That's-
Once we started, we need to see what is the
Right.
unintentional impact.
Where's the threshold?
And then address it right away, 100% agree.
If they're worried about the safety of the children, they won't mind.
Well, we'll
Well, it's
find
between
balance.
minding and getting frustrated.
Yeah, we'll find
It's
that
just like
balance.
going on a military base.
I'm aware. I work on one. Doesn't matter how many days in a row that same guard sees you, you
You
still
may
gotta be
remember when we
ready.
talked about Raptor, I think it was Tim, or maybe it was Brett, were talking about how people you thought were just regular Joes were fine, and they came in and boop, nope, you got a sex offender issue with your
Yeah.
child. It's like, whoa, none of us knew that, you probably shouldn't be in this building, at least not escorted.
Those
Right.
guys don't tell you they've done it.
Yeah, no, they don't. So, that's the issue, depending on what it is, we will make the decision, if you're just there to drop off work, we'll escort you. If you're there to work in the building, then we have to say, no, you can't, because here's why. And then have that as a private
Is
conversation.
this, are we gonna use it for like volunteers for field trips and stuff as well?
Yeah. Our volunteers already get the background check.
No, they can fingerprints too, don't they?
Everybody's
I know I
supposed to
did.
have, yeah.
Are we
I
gonna,
volunteered before.
as
I-
part of your procedure, since you mentioned contractors, that as they go through that Raptor, we're gonna enforce our contractors to ensure all their subs are equitable? Because that's where,
Yeah, well, it's a good point up front
yeah,
to talk to vendors.
right.
I didn't think, but you may have already been on membership.
Well, part of it would be, if they are not entering the school building where they will not be around the children, for example, they will be working outside, and then there would not need, there won't be a need for them to go through the Raptor system, since they won't be inside the building. So there are procedures that we can, these will all be outlined in the procedure that we will be presented.
But that's a good point. We should inform all of our vendors by email at least, if not phone calls.
Right.
Just say, we have this system, just be aware, if you know somebody, you probably don't want to put them on our job.
Right, because we did the same thing with the state. We have very, certain, and some vendors know, well, this guy's my best HVAC, but he can't go here
Yeah.
because of what he's done before. Even though he's my best HVAC, he can't come on this, can't come here. And that's just, they know it, it's just, they get a little frustrated when there's the squeeze
Sure.
comes to
And our
it.
system is the multi-state, we chose a multi-state background check.
Yes.
So we wanted to make sure we're covered.
So it is just CBI?
Right.
It'll be good for, especially like a bigger school here, not so much maybe Prairie Heights. Volunteers, parents will know who's in, because it's the visitors and they have to come and they have to sign out. So if an off chance that we have a fire alarm that wasn't, a drill, we know who to be looking for.
Because we have a web-based access to get in and get that report. So another layer of safety and security.
So when I come into Prairie Heights, I gotta, let you know I walk out the door?
And then I just do
Okay.
the system again.
I just wanna make sure.
Otherwise, if there's a fire, then they're gonna be looking for you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So,
Normally I say bye, but I wanna make sure.
I guess my only, obviously the board doesn't have to approve this because it's administrative regulation, but I'd be really interested in seeing the procedures.
Oh, yeah, we have,
We don't have to prove it, but.
yeah, we'll share that. And it's really not a secret document, anybody can see it as well. Point being, I don't want anyone out there to think we have some suspicious thing within this protocol.
Well, if you make it a formal administrative regulation, then it'll be in the policy book on the webpage and all that.
But it's pretty straightforward.
Okay. Any other alibis, board, DAC, super?
Just a quick question. 10:30 tomorrow, is that right? Christmas on the prairie?
11.
11.
What time are they leaving?
We're leaving Prairie Heights at 10:30.
Excellent.
Wish I could write. Okay. All right, that brings us to 8.01, amended budget first read. Dr. Schmidt.
So, the reason why it's the first read and discussion is because it's still in formation mode. One of the things that we were hit by as I opened up the file is the fact that our enrollment was down, our FTE count was lower than what we had projected. And the nice thing is that the state of Colorado has a safety net in place that you take whichever's better, your current year FTE or the average of 5 years. So our average of 5 years was our safety net because we have a reduction of revenue by $86,000 because of the average. Otherwise, we would be talking about like $200,000 because our enrollment dropped. I say that again about the enrollment because we're going to have to really look at that projection from CD next year, find out if they really, what data are they using to make theirs. When you see a decline like that, we want to make sure we don't overestimate again and have to do anything amended-wise mid-year. This year, we're able to reduce that $86,000 because the amount we budgeted for our local and state revenues went up. And so we saw an increase in all of the state things, the different programs we're part of or grants we've applied to. Just going to make sure they hear us.
Yeah, we're trying to figure out the G drive.
Okay. And so that saved us from feeling the full pull of the 86,000. What I'm not changing on the amended budget is the SOT. We've kept it level around the 140-ish mark. Last year we got a statement 2 days ago, our SOT actual is around 155,000. What's nice about SOT, if we always keep it low, to a degree we built in a mechanism of, if it holds steady now, we have a potential revenue source that if we're over budget like 5,000 or 6,000, we have something that can help cover that. What I don't know is if our enrollment went down, how much will our SOT, if at all, will go down? Because if enrollment went down, for the most part, what we know is families moved.
Right.
They didn't say, well, I want to stay here, but then go to Fountain or Pueblo. So if they moved, depends if people bought their homes, how many vehicles they have, because SOT is vehicle registration. That's what they look at. So, and we also don't know if they bring in older or newer age vehicles, because that's also valued at different values. So it's best for us to also leave that alone, again, for the upcoming budget as a little side note. Within the nutrition services, there are some things that I didn't fully fill in yet, and we are finalizing a plan right now, and Cindy and Jasmine and I were meeting right before here, which is why all of us walked in, all three of us walked in close to the start time. And so, based on that meeting, we'll be able to put some actual figures in there, and then when I have that, of course, I'll get that to the board right away, not wait until the packet for the next meeting. The other thing is, in there, is we purchased a new van, and Randy, when I sent you that email, and I lost the term then, I got it back, amortization schedule,
Okay.
I got it back again.
Right.
I was waiting for that because that's what you use as part of the calculation, so it auto-calculates for future years.
Right.
And so I was waiting for that by amortization schedule. I couldn't think of that term when I typed you back, like, that thing for 5 years. So that's why that's highlighted as well, and that's empty, because I need to get that in there. The total dollar amount is already reflected, just the amortization is not reflected. That amortization, by the way, has never been done before, and we learned from CDE, the guy in charge of school finance, Aaron Oberg, when he was working with Cindy and I last year. That's a good thing to put in a budget document. And again, it's transparency. We have these large items, they're financed, and here is the amortization schedule. So I appreciate you sharing that with us. When you look at what we have in here, the initial work was done around salaries. The salaries was trying to make them as actual as we have, right, with the staff we have. So under instruction, salaries are bundled within there. And so on the line item breakdown for Fund 10, you'll notice the very top instruction and some of the salaries dropped because we do a plug for roughly 3 to 5 years experience for every job at the beginning, and then when they come in, some are higher, some are lower. They're replacing someone who is significantly higher and they're lower, and that whole thing. And that's why you'll see savings along there. And then in the column next to the difference, there are occasionally some comments in there for you guys to see as to what might be going on there, if there was a change of any sort. So I'm just going to open up, make sure I hit everything I was going to talk to you about up on my side. So the goal was, knowing we were going to have a reduction in revenue, was what can we do to try to save on expenditures? Because we have a policy pretty much that says we're not going to deficit spend. And so we have to make sure we always have a positive at the bottom line. So we do still have a positive at the bottom line, and there still is some room, potential room in there of things that you guys could recommend, hey, I want you to allocate money towards this and put that in the budget as part of this whole process. The DAC had an opportunity to talk about it, but they viewed it on their own. They will be meeting again to see it one more time before it comes to you guys. So they will take any comments you guys have, anything that staff will provide, and then I will make some adjustments accordingly, and then I'll go to the DAC in the form that will be really the final form. So they will see it, and then when it comes to you tonight of the final read, it'll come with DAC's approval, or otherwise they'll ask questions and we'll make adjustments in a DAC meeting. So it's something I've put together. DAC has had a chance to see and given some feedback and said it's on target before you guys see it.
Do we have a line item budget? Do we have a line item view?
You have a line item view for Fund 10.
Where's that at?
It's in the team, or in the.
It's called Fund 10 line item expenditure.
Yeah, could we have that in the native format? It's a PDF.
Yes. Yeah, I had to put it in PDF for the packet, so I gave you guys the
Right.
PDF instead of the Excel. Here's the reason why. I put a lock on that Excel document because I don't want a whole bunch of people handling it, and if it comes back or it gets out and people inadvertently made adjustments to it, that could create a problem.
You could convert it, when you upload it, convert it to a Google spreadsheet
Not if it's locked.
and share it as view only?
Well, we
Well, you
tried
have to
that.
unlock it
and
first.
then-
You'd have to unlock it, right.
Yeah. So I'm just opening up that line item, typing in my secret password.
But you could upload the unlocked Excel, Grant, you could upload the unlocked Excel, convert it to a sheet, and then remove that Excel. And that's your ground truth, and whatever we manipulate the sheet with to move numbers around will have no effect on your Excel. So
I can do that for you guys.
Because I really like to be able to move numbers and look at it.
Sure, I can do that for you guys.
Put different sorts on it.
By different sorts, because I can't do that with a PDF.
So outside of the salary changes, which you will see in that change, I'm just going to highlight those and open up for you guys. We know that our BOCES services is going to go up because we increased our SPED teacher from 1 day to 2 day. We also heard from the BOCES budget, their audit, was it last week? 2 weeks ago?
Something like that.
It was CASB Thursday.
Yeah,
But
2
we
weeks.
heard from them that they actually had a positive at the end. So the way that it works is BOCES overcharges essentially up front in case they need the backup cash. And then if they don't need the backup cash, they refund us. And last year it was like a $15,000 check.
Yeah, roughly.
It's 14 and change, yeah.
So what I did, I went ahead and counted, knowing that they were ahead this past one, I went ahead and counted for some of that to be a little bit closer to what our real actual will be. So I only increased it by 10,000, even though the expense might have been 15,000, so I just increased it by 10, just to verify that one. I'm scrolling down real quick in the line items. Tuition paid to other districts and BOCES, I had to increase that by 3,000 because it's expected to increase. We had 3 students at School of Excellence, one of them moved away. We had one of the 3 students there, moved away, then moved back. So I just went ahead and increased it as if though we had 2 students all year, because that should cover what we've seen. And that's a place where we might not end up spending all that money. And then, looking at non-salary items. I will tell you, the board audit, I increased that because the person had been increasing it over the years, but I signed an agreement today, and I hope Bob's not listening, and it was $10,800. However, he has a line in there, you know, this doesn't include if I have to do these extra work, et cetera, et
Right.
cetera. So it won't be that 16, I don't see it being there, but I'd rather keep that buffer there in case he comes in at like 13 or 14. That's why that's been bumped a little bit. We did some recoding, trying to get things more in line with where they actually came from. And that may be it. So, in the line item, what you see, the separate page is breakdown according to the state, and then it goes, this calculation is tied to the actual budget document. We have to break down by codes. So that's why we have to show instruction costs, co-curricular student, et cetera. Just because I think it's important for our community to see, I had put in the percentage column. Because I think it's important. It's easy to say things like, we spent way too much on central administration. Well, if you look at that, our general administration is 7% of our budget. And that's not just me, it's also Cindy and that's about 8 teams. Our school administrators, we pay them too much. Well, they're 6% of our budget. 49% of our budget is instruction. You know,
What page are you on, Grant?
I'm back on the fund, you see the totals on the line item, Fund 10 line item, and then those totals carry over to the general 10 layout in the actual proposed budget.
What page is that?
Probably, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 probably in yours.
4 is blank.
And is it, maybe it's 5 then?
5.
There's no percentages in there.
It didn't show up, okay.
That's why you confused me, we're talking percentages.
I'm sorry. The page snap, the screen snap that I took for PDF includes that. Yeah.
So is it, do you print a PDF or do you do a screenshot of PDF?
What I did is I saved this document as PDF at the selection. So I select what I want at the selection. And that's why maybe that one column right came out, because in my format.
What keeps you from printing the whole, what keeps you from printing the whole document as a PDF instead of the selection?
We're on the same page.
Yeah, we're on the same one. Yeah, we just don't have a percentage. We stop right at the colored line, right at the, whatever.
So when we do the official one that goes out to the public, it will have all the
There we go,
pages exactly
percentage.
as they're laid out.
You gotta go about 3 pages down.
2 or 3 pages, and it's right.
It's right on the side.
7:20.
So
Yep.
the
There you
community
go.
can take a look at it, but essentially 49% of our budget goes to instruction. Then the next largest item is our operations and maintenance at 17%, and then the next is 10% to transportation, and everything else is single-digit numbers, which is co-curricular, student services, and let's see, instructional staff, but that's misleading. It's not true. It's not teachers and paras. It's a whole different category. Support services from the central level, and we haven't done any facility acquisitions, so we don't have anything there. So that gives you an idea, though, that where we put our money is we put 49 direct to students, plus 17, plus 10, so 27. So we put 74% of every dollar, 74 cents of every dollar goes towards transportation, maintenance operations of our facilities, and instructional program for our kids.
So this is where I get a little confused. This is why I asked you the question. I don't get it. So on the next page, where you start to have the pupil count breakout, the last row, it talks fund balance at the end of the year. And it was Oh, see, so I'm not looking at how much we're putting into the fund balance. I'm just looking at fund balance. That's why I was thinking that we were deficit spending.
Okay. No, so
Okay.
our budget that we are operating right now was built to see $165,000 excess revenue. The amended budget is going to make that $126,000 excess revenue.
Okay. So if I'd have just looked at the line on top of that, I wouldn't have made that mistake.
Right. What's down below, by the way, as well, that's, Aaron recommends you put that in there. That's the modified version of the worksheet for how they come up with the state funding. We put it there, but honestly, we'd have to have a session with community members probably explain it because it's missing a lot.
YouTube video.
Yes, that's true.
I think everywhere it's in there, you should abbreviate the budget stabilization.
Yes.
Anyway. Okay.
So, with whatever you saw, CPP, just so you know, in there, that's the federal, that's the state one. Jody has that, or they run it really tight where they always have a little extra. And then she does the multi-year carryover so they can do things like buy the playground. So that's pretty tight, but you can certainly ask questions on there. You can ask obviously on anything. And food services, we started trying to trim that down because Aaron flagged us that CDE is going to come up with a way to evaluate school districts to make sure that they're not misusing those monies and overspending in food service areas. And so since he told us, that's why we acted a year in advance of that coming, to get that so we don't, we're hopefully within what will work out as what's acceptable to them. And then pupil activity, that is pretty much our athletics and activities. There is a little line in there for fundraising for if either school does a fundraiser, that it's there. Pupil activity, a little extra money in the past had been put in there for 17-18 to try to make sure that all of the sports and activities had a positive balance. And we are working on that to have a system where it's easier to monitor the balances in each of those line items, so that coaches can see that. Where those line items can change, actually in the account, will be if in a given year, football has all new jerseys, so therefore that is gonna be spent almost all the way down. There might even be a negative, because the overall activities has a positive balance. So it can always eat up anybody who's over a little bit, but we only do that if we know what it was.
Right.
Uniforms, equipment, things like that. And so we've already, at the beginning of the year, I know, and with Brett coming on, Brett was kind of shocked, if I remember right, like, we don't have as big of a refresh program. But, yeah, we'll have some things rolling through our sports to be able to get some newer equipment and jerseys, et cetera. One of the things they wanted for some of our activity groups is, and I never even thought to ask, I just never hit me, like match wits. They don't have a school shirt they get to wear when they go to competition. So Tim's like, well, do we have school shirts for this? And I'm like, no, but we can get them. Because I'm like, yeah, they deserve to have a uniform. They're like anything else.
Other schools have that too.
So-
I've gone to match with.
So those kinds of things, you know, because of their experience, they've been able to say, I've experienced this, can we do it? It's been like, yes, let's do those things.
Great.
So any questions you might have? I may not have addressed it in my lengthy overview, but not overly lengthy.
I think you hit on mine. I have a question that's not obvious to me. Bond redemption, second page of bond redemption.
Okay?
Am I to infer that the bond will be paid off at the end of 2024 from this?
So we have what they call series, and the series just means what year. So our very first series bond will be down there. It's the bond,
I looked at the amortization schedule for that,
Yeah.
but I didn't get a copy of it from the auditor, so I can't give you any
I want to give you
numbers.
the right
I'm sorry.
years. I want to give you the right years. I have it in here, the series years. So we have a Series 2003, that's the one that will be taken care of. Then we have the
Okay.
Series 2010, which will continue. And the 2003, I was under the impression that's the one that's, it's like 21 or 22.
Mills?
It's supposed to expire, no, I'm sorry, the
A
year.
year.
It's supposed to expire at 23, and, because remember, we have essentially an extra year payment in there.
Right.
And so it's either 21 or 22, I want to say 22 is when that one will be done. Is that what it says on the amortization?
2023, 24.
23, 24?
Yeah, but it looks like in the total, it looks like in the principal, there's double principal, but there's also 2 years in it, so that's,
Right, right.
And that says series, that says the 2010 bond. So I'm
Right.
referencing the 2003 series.
Right.
So the 3 has to be the one that's like 20. And now I appreciate you sharing that, because we need to have that as another amortization, so help me remember that.
Okay. I'll talk to
Amortization for the Series 2003.
Because he has copies of it. I sent it today when we,
So that'll be added in here.
I don't know, we don't calculate it this way, but do you know roughly how many mills we have on the 2003 bond?
I need to open my folder.
Yeah, because there's no way to break it out from what we have, but I don't know that I would expect you to. I was just curious. Just curious.
However, it's this building, it is more expensive. So it's gonna be, I would suspect it's gotta be more than half. I don't know how much more than half, but.
So roughly half.
Yeah, it should be roughly
I
half.
don't know that.
Because this building, wasn't it like a 12 million or $14 million building, and Prairie Heights was
I
like
wasn't here there.
7 million?
I think so.
Something along those lines?
Or just by size, that
Right. That's good information that we really should have in here from public look at it, so we'll add that in there.
That's what that
To
lady
go with the
said,
mill.
Casby. She built these. I think you're right, because that's, the lady that did the bond and did help us build both these buildings, we met in Casby.
Okay.
She said,
firm.
she said 7, yeah.
You may not want to say that publicly. I'm just kidding.
Hey, we just met her.
You should, man, you could ask her,
Not
why
like
did
they
we
bought
have
her
to put
lunch."
that big support beam in that you missed in the gym?
Yeah.
I need to build something, forget a big support beam.
How do you know comments weren't made?
Okay.
I'm just.
That's all I have. Does anybody else have any questions?
Comments were made, but I don't know.
No,
if it's
I just like a line item budget to crunch sooner than later.
Yeah, I'll email it right now.
Any further questions? Anything else you'd like to add now?
Now, is there anything you guys want to see addressed in there? Because here's an example. Do you want to, since there's $100,000 added in there, do you want to have us explore the cover for or enclosure for the bus barn?
Well, I thought that was already on the table that you guys are gonna look at, go out and get different, I wouldn't say,
Well, it's on the
proposals.
table, but out of
but
fund balance.
you were gonna look at a plan,
Mhm.
and I don't, I mean, if your plan is buy a $300,000 bus barn next year, yeah, probably not, but if you are like, hey, so we have this great plan, in the end, it's gonna be a $500,000 bus barn, but we're gonna do it $100,000 at a time per year kind of thing. So it's really more about the plan than the money, I think, in my
Okay.
mind.
Okay, because
Um,
at one point we were talking out of fund balance, but now that we show some revenue, it wouldn't necessarily have to come out of there.
Oh, I see what you're saying, so, that,
We,
could
just
we
so you know, as
put
a safety,
something together
is-
in time?
is that we would not do anything, because you guys would be approving, but I can add in, $80,000 into the maintenance budget.
Now that we're carrying over.
Yes, and just say that's tagged only for if we do this, and if we don't do it, and you guys don't approve it, then we just know it's gonna shake down to the fund
It's
balance.
called
Well,
proposed
that's good
capital.
too.
It's called proposed capital expenditure.
Yes.
Well, so that we don't sit here for a while
Yeah.
and end up giving you direction without a vote. Come up with a number, I think nobody would complain if you did that. Came up with a number to earmark for the bus barn, because I know two of us here that are like,
Yeah.
it's way overdue. I have to assume the whole board is in agreement with having a bus barn.
Last meeting, we talked about you were gonna come up with some phased approach for us.
Yes.
Right.
So
Yeah. And, because
But
scenarios that were going on the last
So did
3
you
days.
say-
So,
80 we're putting in there?
here's a question.
Well, we could buy for 50. And
Yeah.
so
It's the
roughly 30 for labor is what.
cycle.
he's saying.
So
It's probably-
if, again, I don't know how deeply you look into it, but say you have a phased approach in the file cabinet, right? And we said, okay, here's 80, and when we go to do the next year's budget, if we can, we'll give you 50. Is there a way, based on the timing of things, to have anything that looks like a bus barn by the time school starts next year?
We could look at certain options where you can have phased construction, again, that lot is huge, you can do it in several phases. I mean, there are
Because
plenty of options.
I'm all in for the sooner the better, not just because of what happened a few weeks ago, but because of the hail
The
and,
hail and the weather.
and all that.
Because you could say phase 1 is a slab at the bottom plus the support beams. And then you say if we have the money, then we can, in July, approve that we can put the roof on it.
What, do we even need a concrete slab? Can we just,
The reason why we need at least a slab on one side is because the bus is wash. And we don't have proper, right now they use this pad out here, or they pull up to the building here, and they're not properly designed for drainage. And that's why you see them cracking and all that other stuff.
oh, it's, I mean, we don't have to, I'm just saying, we don't have to slab the entire barn.
No.
We
No,
can just
we
slab
don't
that
have to.
washing portion.
Right, right.
Yeah, 'cause to me, the
Essentially
priority is.
a big bay would be that.
Yeah.
And I only say that because I don't know construction well enough. Do you pour a slab before you start putting supports, or you put supports and you have room for a slab? I don't know.
As long as the truck, from what I've seen, as long as the truck can pump into it, you're good. But we need to make sure we have the drainage in place.
Mhm.
But my key thing is, I think the roof is probably gonna save our buses more than anything else, is the cover, to get them out of the sun.
I would suspect the support beams are probably the cost, material cost.
Right, you got the beams for the roof.
Right.
And the roofing would be.
Well,
But
so like I
that was
said,
an
if you
example.
guys want to
Yeah.
move forward with that and
Okay.
you convince the superintendent to attempt to earmark some money for that in the amended budget this year, I don't think any of us would complain.
Well, we'll work on that before we come to you guys with the final, so that you have that to be able to say.
And
yea or
maybe
nay.
just an email heads up between now and then saying, oh yeah, we've run the numbers and we think we're gonna throw this much at it, so expect to see it.
And in the wash rack, maybe, like Tag said, think about putting a recycling tank at the bottom. Save water,
Just like the car washes in town.
just like the car washes in town,
You
yeah.
wash, it all drains into a
Yeah.
holding tank and then gets filtered back and you're using the same water all the time.
Part of that is also, they've been looking at, for a basic routine maintenance. We pay, in my opinion, a lot of money, and we
We
take
do.
it well.
We do.
And there are roaming people who do it, but when they had talked to a couple, they said, do you have an enclosed concrete
Enclosed
base?
concrete base.
And we said no, and then like, well, I won't do that.
Yep.
So we'd also have to look for oil change,
Mm-hmm.
doing that whole thing and having a prep for that.
It's your plan.
But you can always have a bay for that. That'd be easy to do.
Well, because it's concrete slab, part of me was thinking just double the bay for washing as well as oil change.
Uh-huh.
And also some sort of a lift if they have to change tires and things like that. Because you see our McCandless costs and our
Right.
bills.
Yeah.
But what you don't see is we pay people a half hour
To
to go
drive
down,
down and
and a
back.
half hour to come
Yeah.
back, and whatever time they sit down there.
Yeah.
And they have to go do twice, right? Drop off and pick it up, so we
Right.
take another vehicle. So it's, you know, our
I don't know if we need-
17% is high, I don't know, here's how I know. The Colorado Rural Alliance that I'm a part of, we're lobbying the best group to try to, as you guys know, try to get more money for that.
Right.
And the response that our lobbyists got back was, well, tell us how much do your rural districts spend in operations and maintenance? And so I was the first respond, ours is 17%, it does include salaries though. The next highest is 10, and then they're like
But
at
does
7
the
and 8.
10 include salaries?
Yes. Then the next is 7 and 8. So part of me is wondering, just kind of like that, maybe we're unintentionally paying more in our labor because we're out here and we're transporting our things to get fixed. I know about this roaming person because Edison, when Pat Brzezinski was at Edison, I had asked him, how do you help cut this down? He told me about this roaming guy, and that's who we contacted. They had cover and they had concrete.
Yeah, I don't know if we need a lift though, because we're not gonna be doing anything.
I don't know if it's a lift or the proper, I don't know how you jack up
Just put
a
it-
bus.
You can put a trench in there for changing oil and that stuff, and then you just get one of them lifts that lifts up the front end, put it back in. Yeah.
The nice thing is,
The reason I say that is
Michelle
I'm used to
and
working
Chuck and
49.
Jim will be doing those fine details.
Yes.
Right.
They don't need my lack of knowledge to get away. So, sorry for belaboring that.
No,
We'll
you're fine.
proceed accordingly, knowing
said-
it's a holiday with 2 weeks, people may or may not be around, so we will do our
Yeah,
best
it's
to
tough time
get
to
information.
do that.
No, they will work on it. We'll talk to you.
Okay. Anything else on the budget? All right, that brings us to 8.02, remaining B policies as part of the comprehensive policy review. Any questions, comments, discussion on those Bs? I know I've answered a bunch of questions from Ed.
No, mine are all answered.
Remember, these are first read B policies
I didn't have questions.
for the governance. Okay.
Yeah, I had 2 pages.
All right, unless there's any objections to anything, I guess we'll pass those on to second read. Brings us to 8.03, the remaining L policies. Oh, there's 2 things that we need to talk about collectively as a group, and one of them is, like L's coming up, so that's, your A team should be looking at, you know, like A's and B's are kind of whatever, but, you know, the subject matter expert for L's should look at those and see what kind of impacts they're gonna be and bring us any feedback. Oh, hey, don't make that change, that's gonna kill us, you know, things like that.
And I communicated that reminder by email last week. This is a reminder to always look at what's in the packet. If it impacts their area, make sure that there isn't something that's being missed.
Right.
So,
And remember, all these are CASB recommendations, so.
and what's hard is knowing when we line out something, because it's not in CASB, is what was the reason why they put that in?
Right.
Randy
Yeah.
and I was talking
I
about it.
I really don't know the solution to it.
Well, I know, we talked about this like 2 years ago, if they had some kind of a change document process,
Something that would explain.
a revision table at the beginning or something, that would be nice, but,
But ours does, because we'll be able to have a statement that says all policies that have been reviewed, revised, adopted, rescind date between here and here was done, and we'll be able to explain this process.
right,
And maybe that teaches future boards.
right. And right along those lines, okay, Ed and I had this conversation earlier, is the way the CASB policy on changing policy reads, the policy is effective immediately upon our approval on the second read, unless we put some kind of clause in there that says it's not effective until July 1st or the next school year, or however you want it to read. So we also need to look at that, because in the
Can we
next
have it
couple of
just
months.
in our policy, on policy changes?
You can have it-
Have a statement versus each one saying,
We could make it part of the motion when we go to approve them. And then we just have to make sure we document that somehow in the repositories.
So let's say we went to revamp a good example, we go to revamp the teacher evaluation policy. We could vote on the policy, but say this policy will not be effective until July 1st, 2019.
right.
That way we don't undo what we'd already done.
Do we want to take a default position, and that's in our policy, and then anything outside the default is noted on the policy then, so we're not putting it on everyone?
Well, the default would be, I think as we approve it, the default would be when we second read it, but those policies that you look at and say, hey, wait a second, this has some unintended consequences that we're not prepared for, we need to break those out separately and say, hey, those will be
Right, so-
effective July 1st of 2019.
So like an example for tonight, like let's add on, this is completely arbitrary. I make a motion to approve all A policies. And in a second motion, I make a motion to approve all C policies to be effective July 1st. That's one way we could do it.
Makes good sense to Claire, because you're right, like The evaluation thing, because they're already in the year, would have to be the next year.
Right.
However,
Right.
something else might be, we have to have it for tomorrow.
Right,
Right.
So,
Right.
So
That's a good catch.
and I think, I know you
it's
mentioned,
because I went to the policy thing at the CASB conference.
and
That's good.
I know you said that the packet comes out, they should look at it. Typically, these policies are out well soon enough, because the packet might not be out till Sunday.
Right.
And we're asking somebody to look at it to see if there's any malfeasance by Wednesday, to tell us.
In
And I
terms
think-
of community members, not.
No, staff.
No,
even
no,
staff.
like-
Staff.
I think that's a pretty short timeline, so I think as we get into these policies that have more impact, as they start going in there, be it me, you, or Randy that does them, that we let staff know, or maybe even share it with those subject matter folks to get into that drive.
Everything except for G and J has red line documents out there on the team drive. So if you wanna put them somewhere and have people start looking at them now, it's perfectly.
Yeah.
But
But
they
on
still
a
get,
staff drive.
they still get an additional 30 days though. The packet comes out Sunday.
True, and it's first read.
It's first
If they
read
look at first
on
reads, right?
Wednesday, but they still get an entire 30 days to give feedback
True.
to anybody.
That's true.
Hey, can we change
Right.
this
I
or
just-
whatever? So-
I'd like us to have a mechanism where people can be proactive to look at it, because we all get busy in our lives depending on
Well,
when
that-
it is in the school.
Right,
Even
that's
that 30
exactly
days
what
might not
I'm
be enough.
saying though.
But I'm saying that 30 days, I know that 30 days is a leeway, but for us to arbitrarily say that 30 days is there, that 30 days could get eat up real quick by all the auxiliary stuff that's going on, and then you're like, oh, I missed that, and we realize it's an unintended consequence.
Funny thing is, Dave, when we left, they don't always read our weekly calendars, we do every week either.
Right. Well, at least we can make it easier to say, you know, if you take all those, and put them in a different spot so they can review them, just to share. I mean,
Put
give
them out
them
on
the
the
most
share drive.
opportunity,
I can put them out there
yeah,
somewhere.
the most
Or
opportunity to look at it
a
as
staff
possible.
drive. You
Yeah.
know, if we open a staff drive, we have to invite them, so I have to, we put all their emails in to let them know they're available to get to it.
Yeah, just like Randy did us.
Yeah.
So I got a question, Randy.
Sure.
Sir.
You said Cs aren't effective till July.
Well,
Now,
that's
I
the
know-
hypothetical motion.
Hypothetical.
Right, yeah.
Now, you did that, the only place we have that on record is on a recorder.
And the
And
minutes
the
when they
minutes,
come out.
that's it.
Yep.
Wouldn't we,
We would have to put,
could we post-state the policy?
we could do that.
We could put a,
We could, if we
Well, that's
make
what I'm
that
thinking.
motion, we could go,
we post-state
Just
policy.
write it in the policy.
Right.
Effective January, or July 1,
Right.
we could do that.
2018,
Yeah,
and then now
Since
write
we
the
have to
policy.
go into
Okay.
every policy
Then my-
Word
then I like that one
document
better.
yeah.
and approve the
Clarify
changes
when it
and
goes
then
into
save the
effect.
changes as PDF anyway, we're touching every single
Yeah.
document anyway, so we might as well do that.
So actually what we do is we'd add a date, because we'd have an approved date of,
Yes.
say, today.
And an
Effective
effective date.
Effective date.
Would be
yes.
July 1st
Yeah.
of
I like
next year.
that, I like that one better.
It
like
just
that.
starts
Look at the,
You just
your
write the
footer at
policy
bottom of the
that
last
way.
page, this would be effective date.
effective date law.
We'll just go approve and then write above it effective.
Right.
That way you
That way that
can read it,
changes
like I
there.
said, we
So
still
it goes
got
effective, approved, and all that stuff.
Every Word document and accept the changes anyway, so.
That way we don't lose track. 'Cause I'd hate for us in our due diligence to get all these policies done, and then some unintended consequence of it is we're causing a lot of work for somebody that really isn't
It
necessary.
isn't necessary, right? Or even worse,
You mean kinda like it was for us?
Yeah.
hey.
Or you guys?
No,
Yeah.
but like I'm worried when we start getting down into the instructions and the staff.
And
Or,
the
yeah,
student.
instruction, students,
Yeah.
and staff, we get into those sections, we could really be tripping over ourselves by, if we don't pay attention to when these things really should be effective.
Yeah. And on that note, when we get into those, I would like, my recommendation is we don't strike so much of the language out, because part of our striking out all the other ones is because we know it's in CRS. Not every staff member is gonna be versed in CRS or even know how to access it, even though I could share with them. Point being, some of those having the redundancy of CRS for staff to read, at least it helps them to know a little bit about, maybe we just keep in like the big one. Even though it says cross-reference to CRS, it might be helpful though for the staff member to be like, oh, it's right there. And I can't give you an example yet,
Well, and if
But
we,
as
and
we
if
get
we
there-
were,
It's more or less to be able to help give them information versus cause them to have to find.
Totally agree with that approach. Problem is, we have no data points to, because most of these policies are so old, we have nothing to say, oh, this was removed because it's a carbon copy of CRS, so let's keep this line. We don't have those data points.
That's why I couldn't give you an example.
And some of those
Maybe
things,
just
like,
in our minds as we're going through
Ed and
it.
I were talking earlier today, you know, like in, I can't remember the name of the policy, but there was a whole paragraph, I think it was board member ethics. It's a
Yeah.
whole paragraph that was pulled out of BC,
Yeah.
and Ed's like, no,
Right.
we need to have some of that
Gotta
stuff.
have
And I'm
that.
like, well, go look at BCA E2, and all, that whole section was in a new policy verbatim. And I'm just like, I don't quite understand why they did that,
Yeah.
but, you know, unless,
That sounds like more of an oversight than an intentional double it. Wow.
No.
I'm assuming. I should
no, this
assume.
BCA
Because I don't
E2 is
know.
less
I
than
wouldn't
2 years
know.
old, so, I mean, I think that was
Okay.
done on purpose with forethought, but, yeah.
We're so far behind, we're in a tight spot.
Yeah.
When we try to,
And
as you said,
so,
the data points,
So
because
how-
like, if we were to
It's like,
look
what
at this,
what are we
this
doing, I
summer,
thinking then, because we would, if it was 2 years ago.
man,
You should have said that.
well, it's pretty easy, because when you updated it, you didn't look at the policy that Mary kind of went with
Yeah, it may
it.
very well have been there.
Yeah.
But, okay. I agree.
so, I mean, as you go through those things, if you see something that you think is really valuable for us to keep, it's redlined out.
Right.
Let me know, and I'll go do the work and say, oh yeah, that's right out of CRS, we gotta keep that. Or, oh no, I don't find that in CRS, it must have been taken out for another reason, then we can get ahold of CASB and see if they have any data on why that particular thing that we think
Right.
is useful to be in there
It's gone.
is gone. I think the chances are slim that they'll remember or have a place to look it up, but you can always ask.
I was just thinking in terms of trying to be easier for staff.
Yeah.
But just because Casby don't have it doesn't mean we can't have it.
Oh, absolutely. Look,
Yeah,
we
if
can
it's
leave that in
beneficial
there.
for our staff,
Right.
she need to look at that too.
Yeah, and I think, you know, as we get the staff more involved in this
Right.
process, they'll be like, oh, hey, it doesn't make sense to take that.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys took this upon yourself to do it, because I don't want to.
Especially with the J's and the G's, because the
Yeah.
J's is all student stuff,
Yeah,
and then the G's is all personnel stuff.
yeah.
And those are the ones that really need more than just even the 3 or 4 or 6 of us looking at.
Deep
Because it
dive.
affects a lot of what they
The
do
more
out
I've been
there.
reading what you guys been doing, the more I know I'm glad I'm not.
Yeah, sometimes it's
I
easy,
appreciate
but
it.
sometimes it's very hard as you start looking.
It's a lot
That
of
sounds good.
It is.
I will make sure that, figure that, I think it'll have to go with shared drive, because that Google Drive with emails and people who might come and go.
Yeah, shared drive would probably be
Shared
better.
drive and remind staff.
Yeah.
So there's if you download FileStream, have Larry put FileStream on your computer.
Okay?
And what FileStream does is it allows your G drive to emulate the file manager. So instead of downloading or uploading, you just copy and drag.
Mhm.
But that product's called FileStream.
Okay.
It's phenomenal.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if he knows that, because when I first started here, I said, I came from a district where everything I saved on my hard drive folder was already being automatically saved on the network as my backup. Can you replicate that? I don't know what that is. He might know now.
No,
But FileStream, you
Talk
gotta
to
drag
Larry.
it. You gotta drag it, but it allows you don't have to
Like
download it.
Larry.
You know,
yeah, I don't have an
you
automatic one
yeah,
like that.
you don't have to download, you can just drag it over just like File Manager.
I used to work for a company
That had that.
that had that.
Yeah.
It was nice,
I
because
had
I
a
knew
neighbor.
if my computer crashed, I've got everything
You're-
over there.
You're walking from your car and you trip over the step as you're walking in the house and bust your computer and you're like, okay. Everything was safe, so. Okay, so, sorry for that tangent.
That's important policy stuff.
So unless anyone has any objections to any of the L policies, we'll move them forward to second read. Okay, that brings us to 9.0 action items. And we have 9.01 through 9.28 are all A and C policies that are part of the comprehensive policy review. So however you guys would like to address that, I'm certainly amenable.
What do we do? Approve
9.1 through 9.28,
I'm certainly fine with that.
and then, right, and then split up the other. Might have to split.
Yeah,
Is there a reason to split them up?
Well, 29 through whatever, yeah, absolutely.
Doing the non-policy ones.
Those are the non-policy
Oh,
ones.
okay.
Unless there's specific policies that someone wants to follow.
No, I've talked about them all,
Okay.
so I'm good.
All right, then I make a motion to approve, action items 9.01 through 9.28.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion?
Yes. So, I know it seems like we're doing a lot of work around this policy, but in reality, as board members, policy is our primary job. Because with policies is how we give our formal direction to the superintendent, who promulgates it down to all of his staff under him. So in reality, we are actually doing what we're supposed to do. And it's a lot of work, and it can be frustrating sometimes. And I love it when Randy's sick, because he does a lot of policies, because he can't sit at home and binge watch TV. I can binge watch TV, so I'm not as dedicated and disciplined as that. But that's really what we're here for, is policy. And to monitor it and to ensure that it's appropriate. And I just want to reiterate, as we went through all this policy, some of this stuff should have been gone years ago. But because the review wasn't as comprehensive, it was more surgical, some of the stuff was missed. So the goal was we just started at A and we're going to go all the way through. Whereas years past, CASB'd send out their bulletins, update this, that piece gets updated. And as we discussed earlier, that's why we missed a piece over here, because it wasn't a truly comprehensive review. So I just wanted to let all those sitting out there and listening know that, and then thank the rest of the board members that put up with it and all the looking at it. But
And I want to add to that, but I think I have to sneeze first.
when we went to the CASB policy thing, and we described what we were doing, those gals, or those CASB staff members were like, wow, you're doing what? Your entire policy book?
Randy got a high five.
Yeah, and we're like, yes, we're going through the entire thing. And
Well,
some
I
of the
think
other
they're
school
not
districts
working
looked at
here.
us and went, wow, you guys are crazy. But unfortunately, that's what we have to do. And as a board, that's what we should be doing.
Well, I mean, we could have taken a different approach. We could have rolled it more slowly,
Yeah.
not as
Yeah,
as
but it looks
aggressive.
like we needed to really do what we're
I
doing.
agree.
Yeah,
But I think a very important point I want to add to what Dwight said and then reiterate what Ed said. So again, all these policies are, the only changes to all these are things that the CASB core policy sample policy, CASB core policy manual sample policy says to change, with very few exceptions. Those policies, like you'll note in the Bs that we've tweaked in the past, those changes are retained. They aren't lost. But the most important thing, I think, out of all of this, to take out of it, is exactly what Mr. Swayze said earlier, is just because it's not the CASB recommended policy, doesn't mean we can't have it in ours, as long as it doesn't violate law.
Right.
Right.
That's our local.
And that's what local control is all about. So if you see something in there and you're like, hey, this, like I added by last name to the voting policy, because the CRS doesn't say by last name, but we all know that's what it meant,
Mm-hmm.
Right,
right?
That's true.
not in reverse order though.
I thought as an S, you'd appreciate that.
Okay, so for background,
Yes, sir.
for background, when there's votes that are split board votes, it really sucks to vote last every time. Okay, and so you know when you're sick and you're doing this policy review thing and you're redlining a Word document and you get a little bored, so you come upon this voting policy and you're like, let's just vote in reverse alphabetical order by last name.
To see who will notice.
And so I redlined that policy that way. Ed caught it, which is in direct violation of CRS, so I had to change it back and I sent it out to the board as an update, but somebody caught it, Randy got bored, it was fun. But yeah, that's the only policy I've played with, but.
Oh, I read them all to make sure.
Yeah, so, but I think that's the most important thing to take away from this is just because it's not the CASB one doesn't mean we can't have it. So if you see something that you think needs to be addressed as we're going through this, please.
It's good for the community here because you guys had that practice. They can speak at board meetings or in action related to
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as the policies come out in the public board packet, encourage the public to take a look at it and offer up any suggestions. And if you have questions about, oh, hey, why is that thing in there, or
Yeah.
why is that thing being taken out? I mean, we can try to answer it, so please don't hesitate to contact us.
or
Might
for
be
the
able to
meetings.
tell us why something's in there too.
Yeah. And, you know, if I can't deduce the answer from the
Right.
archive of documents that we do have, I'll ask the folks at CASB and see. what they
And
can
if we
say.
ever get this to work like regular, we have columns to the board. That's a little too
Integrated,
hiding
but-
behind.
Okay. Any
It's not our
further,
current policy for public
any
comment.
further discussion on 9.1 through 9.28? Questions, comments, concerns?
I had a question about ADF, about the wellness.
Uh-huh.
So from my understanding, we need to have a committee. How are we going to put this information out to the community? Or I believe at the beginning of the before the meeting started, we just say we're gonna delegate this to the DAC. Is that
Well,
my
so
understanding?
once the policy is approved, then we'll have to figure out as a board how we want to address it.
Okay,
But to me, it looks like a perfect fit for the
okay,
DAC.
that's what I wanted to make sure I was. on
And I
the
would
same
say
page.
with the nutrition services director intimately involved,
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
because it falls in wellness. And if it's around health and fitness part, then we probably want to ask our PE teachers
Mhm.
to also be there.
And we've tried that before, and we didn't get any takers.
That was 2 years ago or so, right?
Yes.
Right,
Just to let you know.
Which is why I think,
We
you
did
know,
put it out there.
no offense, Brandy, don't get upset. We already have a group of willing volunteers to help
Yeah.
with the school. And so I think unless, you know, we make their head explode by giving them too many responsibilities, you know, we should use them as much as we can. And you know, this ADF is a perfect overlay for the DAC, so,
And I believe we had our,
but, you know, we
But the
can't.
health and welfare, they're not gonna be able to do it all.
No, the committee to review the bullet points of the
And
things.
make sure we're implementing it, correct?
Right,
Yeah.
okay, I agree.
Yeah,
Yeah, they'll
they
be
don't,
oversight.
they wouldn't necessarily
yeah.
have the right
we
expertise
have
to
a-
come up with the elements of the program.
Right,
But they can
It's like
certainly
a checks and
look at
balances.
the elements of the program that we've adopted and
Right.
say
As
whether or
I
not
was
we're doing
reading
it.
it,
good,
and wanted
I
to
agree,
make sure
I agree.
That's the only
The elements
question.
of programs gotta be with our food services and
Nutrition,
not just
PE, or
PE,
where, yeah.
not just PE, I think that should be teachers
Might
included.
even be the whole A-team, I don't know, that's
I
up
agree.
to Dr. Schmidt, you know?
Yeah, I think
That's what
there
I've
should be
been
something like that.
slowly doing on all these. I've been pulling out which ones say it's an annual report, which ones say committee, and trying to keep a list, so when we're done, we can see a bigger view, and then you're right, then it can be delegation time.
Right.
I think the AD
Just like
should
I've
be
been
in on
keeping
that too.
a file of everywhere where it says the board shall.
Yes. Yeah, same kind of thing, because we don't
Have a
have
file
that in
for
one
that.
place, and
No.
Yeah,
you have to scour it. But this
Well,
is
and that
allowed.
goes back to your comment of, well, if this is exactly CRS and it's helpful, then we shouldn't remove it.
Right.
And so that same kind of thing, there needs to be an index, if you will, so I can say, you know, the board shall, and see everything that the board has to do.
Is there a way to
that's a good
do a
idea.
search on multiple PDFs?
Right?
That, they're,
Like a phrase
Like a
search?
keyword?
I don't know about PDFs, I know you can do it with Word.
I was thinking
I
more
don't know about
of a
PDF.
grouping of them, so you can,
Well,
versus each one.
what we do is we'd have our repository, which is gonna be the Google Doc. You could search that like that.
And it'll go
For
across
keywords.
multiple Google Docs?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, all the separate folders, so if
That's
you
good,
are
'cause
up
I
at
guess we wouldn't put it
repository
in there.
and you search on wellness, it'll search through A, B, C, D, E, F.
Good.
And bring up everything that
I like
has the
that.
word wellness.
Yeah.
Okay.
It is, but I don't know if that works with PDF. I know it works with the repository.
Well, where we have the
Okay.
repositories where it's important to have.
Right.
And most of them are Word, correct?
Because staff can go in there and look.
They
things
all
up.
are both, how about that?
Okay.
PDFs.
I'll be looking up
That
report.
Word is our working document.
Even those exhibits that are natively Excel, I have embedded the Excel in the Word document, saved it as a Word document, and then also saved it as a PDF for,
Okay.
Yes, the AD will be number
Posting
2,
to
the
the
nutrition
website.
services
Okay.
person.
Yeah, we had that problem.
I
There's a lot
agree.
of policies we had to
That's a
change.
good idea.
If I could speak about the wellness policy,
Oh,
we
you
do
may.
have one already in the nutritional services department.
we do.
But we do not have a committee, but what we have done is we have piggybacked with the PTO. We've done the run-a-thons, and when we go through our nutritional services audit every 3 years, all that gets looked at. And I'm sure Brandy remembers, she was here, she became one of our sponsors and brought out her,
Could be a next.
yes, and we had the human services out here, we had a whole bunch, we had the farm to table, the snacks, you know, we do that every year.
So
So,
no one here is saying
Yeah,
that
but I'm
you
just
guys aren't
saying-
doing a great job.
no, I'm just saying, we do have, we just don't have the committee, like
Okay.
on paper, but we do have, like Alvarez, you know, we piggyback with her, we piggyback with the PTO.
Mhm.
We combine those events together so that we can check it off of our,
So operationalizing what they're talking about, when I mentioned in my big thing, is that probably become more of a report. And then
Right.
we look at the timing,
Yes.
have the DAC see it, and then the board would get to see it too, maybe or maybe not, but
It just depends on how the
it's
policy
their
reads.
backup,
never-
that's
we're
your,
never
we
able
saw
to
it,
get a
it's a
committee.
check off,
Okay.
basically.
to, you know, and do the meetings
Whether
like
it's done by
that.
committee or.
Set an ad hoc committee of, hey, we're doing
That's
this.
fine.
Yeah, it's titled
No, that's
Wellness
fine.
Committee. We just couldn't.
And like I
get
said, that's
anybody, so we
one of
kinda-
the things that, you know, no one unintended
Piggyback to
consequences
make it
on
happen.
this.
Nice.
Let's
But we
think through
passed
it.
the audit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. Any other discussion, questions, comments, concerns on 9.1 through 9.28? Someone here? Okay. Okay, alibis? All right, call for the vote, please.
Mr. Allen,
Aye.
Ms. Cohen,
Aye.
Mr. Smith,
Aye.
Mr. Swayze,
Aye.
Mr. Underwood.
Aye. Brings us to 9.29, approve GOCO funds commitment. Do I have a motion to approve 9.29?
Make a motion to approve 9.29.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Discussion. I still don't understand your logic, but I'll go with it. I don't understand with the resolution worded at the next one,
Yes.
worded so clearly that says, we are on the hook for 25% of $240,000
Up to, yes.
with the intent of attempting to get 15 to 25% and in some kind of a fundraising or donation kind of thing. To me, that clearly spells out, we're on the hook for 60K.
If that's a fair interpretation by the board that they're saying, that we are approving a future expenditure of up to 60,000, then I'm okay with that.
Oh,
I
well,
was
it's too
doing-
late, we made a motion to approve it, we'll vote on it, because that's the way you
I
it.
did it separate, because one is saying, yes, we support the application, and then the other one is, yes, we approve of spending up to 60,000. Because we do have to have things showing the
Right.
board supported the
Right.
application
Yeah.
and so forth. So I split them as separate.
That's fine. That's totally fine with me. I just, so now comes my real thing is, remember earlier we talked about how I was under the impression that we were actually deficit spending $39,000.
Right.
And I was like, okay, well, I don't know that we can commit 60K when we're deficit spending 39K. We're not deficit spending 39K.
Right.
We're just putting 39,000
Less.
less into the fund balance than we thought we were.
Yeah.
And that is still 6 figures that we're putting in the fund balance this year, right at 6 figures. So if we approve this and the subsequent one, and we make that grant application and we get it, and we're not very good at fundraising, we're on the hook for 60K. That's the worst
Yeah.
case
That's the
scenario.
worst case
That's
scenario,
worst
no
case
more.
scenario.
No more.
Okay, okay.
And that's also, if when I finish the application of the actual equipment, because we ran it through our staff and our students and a very small PTO meeting in attendance, and they have all the ideas of what they want. And so now, over the break, I'll be going to catalogs, looking roughly what does it cost. That final dollar amount might be lower. It won't be higher, because I drew this off of last year's budget, or 2 years ago, and that included a preschool playground, or we have a preschool playground. So that's why
Okay.
there I lowered it down a little, in the one, by saying I lowered it down by some money, and the next one, I guess it is for the 60,000.
When would the grant be announced or awarded?
It's either March or April is when it's announced. When the money's available, I still think it's in this year. So they do that so people can do it over the summer for the next year.
Okay.
Okay, so we are committing this year's monies.
Yes, it would be this year's monies.
When does this have to be submitted?
It's like January 20th, somewhere around there, plus or minus. a couple
Yeah, I think
days.
it was in the cover sheet, wasn't
Oh, I couldn't.
And then we have to get.
I remember reading
the
it.
People in the,
it? No, it doesn't say
people
in the
out
cover
here to
sheet.
volunteer to help, right? And with the tractor and things like that to do the work. and fix it.
Well, I know that things can change, but community members who said they would do certain work.
Right,
I still have their names from we did 2 years ago.
good.
We'll contact them. If we can't,
Reminds me, I need to change my cell phone number.
if we can't get some help from our community to do something, that's a little worse. But, because if you guys remember 2 years ago, the homeowner association over where you are, by Prairie Heights, they have a grader.
Right.
So the idea was, yeah, you can use our grader to just grade that little area. So I'm assuming they'll still probably do that, those little things like that. And then in terms of some of the community help, I think we can probably get away with an all-call to say, when the equipment arrives, will you help assemble some little bits, but also maybe move them off the truck to here, we can save some money there, and those kinds of things become in-kind that you can create a value.
Could that be our high school students and for their community service?
It's a wonderful question, I should ask the grant people. I
Good.
hate to tip them off, but at the same time, I don't want to put it in there and be wrong. So I need to ask them. Because that is an
Because
in-kind,
if
but
we
if
could-
we are telling them that counts towards something, I don't know if that connection.
Oh, gotcha.
It may just be fine, I just
Yeah.
don't know if there's something there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was gonna say, I'm sure we can get a lot of high school students out there to do that. If that's, yeah, I don't want to screw.
And there are some community members, amazingly enough, there are some community members with forklifts on their property.
Yeah,
You'd be amazed at what,
Oh, yeah.
some of these barns.
forklifts, backhoes,
Right.
skidsters, it's just a variety of things.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah,
think
so-
they probably would come out. And then the other thing that I did learn from two things. The last grant, part of why they turned us down is because they said, well, we should have planned for that being a new school. So I'm putting in a description that talks about how the school, when it started, the playground was only about 45 kids, because that's how many there were.
Right.
And now we're at 119. So, they're gonna say we should have. I'm gonna try to see if that changes it a little bit. We may not get it again, but we'll see. And it's like any other grant, the GoCo is one of those where they get more applications than they can fund. So we're really comparing not to change criteria so much as who has the greatest need in the board's eye.
Right.
Every year we get a little better with it. It'll come around.
Yeah.
Thank you for all your
Try
work.
hard.
Thank you, we got,
Right?
yes.
Gotta put it
Well,
out
the
there.
second thing was the floor, we were originally gonna do the spray down rubber, pour down rubber. And when the preschool playground was going in, Jody asked that person about that pour. And he actually said, what people don't realize is because of the Colorado sun, the treatment you have to do, there's a high cost of maintenance.
Mm.
And so that got us thinking, no, then we should probably go with cheap, it's also cheaper than other surfaces.
Can we use shredded tires?
However,
Can we use shredded
I
tires?
shared that with Rochelle already because this playground in the park is covered to be replaced. And the surface as well, and they've talked about going with that rubber surface.
Can we use shredded tires?
We can't, it's a particular kind, but yes.
Because the tire dump is now shredding tires.
Okay,
So we have a business in our community
yeah.
that shreds tires.
But it doesn't separate the metal out of it, 'cause I went to them and talked to them about it, about getting some of that. They shred the tires, but
They
the
don't
metal
separate metal?
is
They
still
shred it with
in.
the metal, and then they don't magnet it out.
No.
It's a bummer.
Surprised the
But
plants
with
use
the, there will be parts where we might have some poured because the whole ADA. So kids in a wheelchair have to be able to get to the equipment and then get back off. So in those entry points, we'll probably do that, but then that
Sure.
surface.
Cool.
Thank you.
I'll still bring the whole thing forward at the
Yeah.
next board meeting, the
Great.
whole packet of applications.
Any other further discussion, questions, comments on the GOCO funds commitment? No? Okay, call for the vote, please.
Mr. Allen?
Aye.
Ms. Combs?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Swayze?
Aye.
Mr. Underwood?
Underwood, aye. Sorry. Just waiting at the camera, my son has just arrived in town. Anyway. All right, that brings us to 9.30, approved GOCO application support resolution. Do I have a motion to approve 9.30?
I'll make a motion to approve
Yeah, you need to read it
9.30.
as part of the motion.
What, you
I
have
got
to,
it.
you got it all? You
Yeah,
got
I'll
there?
read it.
Good, I'll let you read it.
All right. I make a motion to approve GOCO application support resolution, and it reads as follows. Resolution to support the GOCO grant for playground at Prairie Heights Elementary School, December 19, 2018. Whereas the district has seen an increase in enrollment at Prairie Heights Elementary School since it opened, and whereas the initial playground built for Prairie Heights Elementary School was for the initial enrollment of 45 students, and whereas Prairie Heights Elementary School playground equipment capacity is less than the number of students on the playground, and, I did? Oh, I apologize, let me start over. Resolution to support the GOCO grant for playground at Prairie Heights Elementary School, December 19, 2018. Whereas the district has seen an increase in enrollment at Prairie Heights Elementary School since it opened. And whereas the initial playground built for Prairie Heights Elementary School was for the initial enrollment of 45 students. And whereas Prairie Heights Elementary School playground surface requires repair and upgrade. And whereas Prairie Heights Elementary School playground equipment capacity is less than the number of students on the playground. And whereas Hanover School District does not have sufficient funds to fully upgrade the playground at Prairie Heights Elementary School, and whereas the district has a fund balance just under $700,000 with a $3.2 million program budget. Now therefore be it resolved that the Hanover School District Board of Education hereby resolves to support the GOCO grant application for an upgrade of the Prairie Heights Elementary School playground. Hanover School District Board of Education is resolved and committed to commit to 25% of the $240,000 grant request with the intent of receiving 15% of the 25% through in-kind sources.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, you gotta read the whole thing. Kidding. Okay, so this is just an extension basically of what we just approved in the previous.
And this will be in the application.
Right.
So, unless we have anything else? Okay, call for the vote, please.
Mr. Allen?
Aye.
Ms. Combs?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Swayze?
Aye.
Mr. Underwood?
Aye. Brings us to 9.31, approved mill levy certification. I have a motion to approve 9.31.
I make a motion to approve 9.31.
Do I have a second?
Oh, second?
Okay, discussion. So as a reminder, every year we have to modify the mill levy for the bond to account for various things, abatements mostly, changes in property value and property assessment and things like that. And this is just that. And so if you'd like to speak to the numbers, Dr. Schmidt.
Essentially, we're looking at an abatement of $43,000, almost $44,000. And when that comes in internally, we split what goes to the bond redemption fund, what goes to general fund. If you look on our budget, you will see that those lines are in there. They're just a wash, but it shows revenue of 48 because we're going to get 40 or 43, but we're going to spend 43, so you have to have them in your budget. So that's it. The other little things, just to remind you, a couple years ago, it was just 2 years ago, the board made a decision to slightly increase the bond redemption fund with the intention of trying to be able to pay it off sooner. And it wasn't, but maybe 1 or 2 mils. It was minimal, but it was enough that's allowed us to be able to have that extra money there to pay a year early. So that's why we're at 24. If you happen to go back or any community members say, hey, 5 years ago it was only blank.
Right, well, and also there was the other factor of the timing of the money in and out of the account.
Mm-hmm.
That was another factor for doing
That's
that as
right.
well.
Yeah. So that's the history behind that thing by last year. So I wanted to share that too. This is required to go to the state as well as the county.
The phone number has an extra digit
Read it.
That means they can't call us.
in it. So you might want to fix that before that goes on out.
Yes, well, I will. Funny thing is, the assessor already knows it.
Oh, okay.
He's the one who sends this.
Oh, okay.
Our Roger, if you don't know, our county assessor is very, I think we talked about it before, he's very friendly with us. He watches out for us.
Yes,
He's a
very
good guy.
nice guy.
That 8 will be crossed out.
Okay.
It's an international number.
Well, and when I first seen that, I was thinking, is there an
Country
extension?
code.
Or-
If we didn't have it pull up, we just threw it in.
It is, for people to know, it is important to know that our total program mill is directly to the school district for what we do. And that is roughly 15% of our total budget.
Mm-hmm.
Every year, somebody who works for JDC always has this idea of trying to do this mill levy deal where it's going to force all communities to go to a certain minimum mill. And so far every year they said no. When I talked to Dennis Heisey about it, he's like, no, we're not gonna do that. That's what the guy did is pitch. But it's just important for our community to know as well.
Well, and not just that, normally when they make that pitch, they either don't or can't account for the bond mill. So if they do that and they drastically increase our mill, we still got the bond mill on top of that.
Yep.
So, yeah, that's a significant.
We would hurt, so hear that. It would kill us if we
Yeah.
had to do that. So if that bill comes forward, we'll talk about it here. We will do something on our front webpage. Like, no.
Well, I think that would hurt most of your rural districts,
I think
Would.
because they don't have the commercial to back it up.
Absolutely.
And that's what makes a big difference, because a lot of these districts, what funds them is their commercial properties.
Yep.
And they forget that we don't have commercial in the rural districts.
Right.
Right.
And that number they've talked about is like 21 to 27.
Right,
That's a huge increase.
yeah. Yep. Okay, anything else on mill levy certification? Okay, call for the vote, please.
Mr. Allen?
Aye.
Ms. Coe?
I'm-
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mrs. Swayze?
Aye.
Mr. Underwood?
Aye. Brings us to 9.32, approve early literacy grant. Do I have a motion to approve 9.32?
I'll make a motion to approve 9.32.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, discussion. First of all, do you notice every time I say like 32, you say 32, and when I say 32, you say 32? I just noticed that, that's weird. Anyway, so I sent you a question last night, you didn't give me an answer.
I realized that as I started scrolling down here.
Okay.
So on the actual application was submitted, the dollar amounts are in there.
Okay.
And the reason why I had to submit a budget worksheet, and they have an error in the budget worksheet. It doesn't calculate it correctly. Here, they wanted to know what's the amount per year. So year one is really second semester this year. It's not a
Okay.
full year. That's the $55,000. Year 2, 3, and 4, each of those is around $135,000. Actually, year 2 is closer to $140,000 because that's the year that we purchase materials.
So this is on page 10 for those of you trying to catch up.
And then years 3 and 4 are just the continuation of purchasing a consultant and purchasing a half-time literacy coach. Because all materials will be purchased in year 2 of the grant.
Okay.
So the total is $436,000.
Okay.
And the worksheet, why I didn't give that to you is because the worksheet pulls out everything on it and puts it all, the same number in all 5.
Hmm.
And I notified them, and so I had to still submit that way, but I have the right numbers here at the submission.
Okay. And then I assume the number of students to be served is, you're just gonna pick this year's enrollment numbers and put it in there?
You know, that was also already in there, is what was submitted.
Okay.
So I got this to you before I pulled the one before I had put it in the numbers.
Okay.
All that is every year using dibbles in grades K, 1, 2, 3. And that's the READ Act money we get. It's one of those
Right.
things, you want more money, but you don't.
Right, right. If you're getting more money, you're doing bad reading.
Yes, the
Yeah.
kids aren't doing what we need them to do. So I had to go back to last year's report. Irene was kind to call me around 9:30 at night or something, and I was like, I can't find these numbers. So she walked me through it. And so what I had to plug in is how many of those students do we have at each grade level? How many did we have, and how many were significant reading deficient, meaning they were well below grade level? And our percentage comes across close to, like, for that year, around 63, 68%.
Oh, yeah.
You get bonus points for having up to 50%. So we will get all the bonus
Okay,
points.
bonus points for grant application.
It's not good. Yes,
It's not
for
good,
kids. Not-
right?
We don't want
It's
bonus
more likely
points
that your grant
unless
will
we're
be
applying.
approved.
Yes. Now, a little side note is when we did our request for reconsideration, Steve Durham, who's on the State Board of Education, spent some time with the commissioner for the Department of Ed and really was advocating in ours because the State Board of Ed, the state actually, CD, 0.4 points is all we were away from not being priority improvement at the elementary school.
Right.
And they wouldn't budge, and I communicated with you guys as well on that, run the fire, they wouldn't budge. So Steve pretty much laid into her, which was nice because he's supportive, we're in his region. And she made a comment back to him that, well, what we'll do, because I feel so bad, is we'll do what we can to make sure they get any grants they apply for. So to me, this is a test. And if it doesn't go, then I'm gonna contact Steve, because he'll be able to say, hey, wait a second, you told me in the meeting, blah, 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 blah. So I'm hoping that's a positive, that we could end up, we deserve it, but with the extra poll, that would be nice if that happens.
Well, and again, it's one of those situations where more people are applying than the money that they have to give out,
Yep.
so any edge.
Yep.
Is there any other grants we can put in there? With him
Uh,
behind us, we need to do everything we can,
We're gonna do a safety grant,
everything we can.
and yes,
Good.
and it's through the CDE grants is what she's talking about.
Right, that's what I mean.
Mhm. So definitely we're looking at what we can
Good,
get into.
good.
So,
Yeah, as long
in
as
the
we got Durham
future, can
behind
we
us, need to-
approve the grants before they're due?
Your approval, here's the way it works. If you would say, no, we don't want this,
Then I don't sign it, and
you don't sign it and I contact CD and say I need to withdraw. I need to
Right.
withdraw that. And the timing on this was, as you were talking, as you guys know, with my health stuff going on,
right.
it was due in that period of time. So
Right.
It's really bad you had all those complications, you didn't get to take your recuperation time to knock out work.
I got some other things going. That amended budget took some
Oh,
time.
I bet it did, yeah.
How do we account for that loss and not hit the classroom?
I don't know.
That's what it is.
Cool. Any other questions, comments, concerns, discussion on early literacy grant?
When will we, oh, I guess I do, sorry, should we hear back?
We will hear by the middle of January because they give us money for second semester.
Okay,
And the money is, $55,000 is to pay for the consultant to work with myself and staff to create the plan for the next 3 years.
okay.
And I had already talked to the consultant about some things I want to see her do for us as well,
Okay.
just to make sure. And one of them, just, I'll throw it out, one of them is a really strong, accurate pacing guide for literacy for all grades using our program that we have. And then working with staff to factor in that we always do a field trip in October, we always do this here, we always have, and take those days out so we can actually have that as a true guidance for staff. So.
Thank you.
Cool. Anything else? All right, call for the vote, please.
Mr. Allen?
Aye.
Ms. Cohen?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mrs. Swayze?
Aye.
Mr. Underwood?
Aye. Brings us to 10.0, information updates. Anything? Just want to say, Michelle, I love the building, roof drawing.
That was nice.
I like that. It really kind of, puts it in perspective because you never get a really get that, percentage of it, When you show the relative size of the different sections and you say A and C are done and B's in work, and it lets you really grasp it way better than 40%,
Yes.
so.
I would like to say, thank you to the athletic director for handling the problem that we had arise in the gym in such a short notice with all the games and getting that worked out. I know that that was probably a very panicky situation, so thank you for all of your hard work and coordination and relaying that to us in the update. It is appreciated.
I still Prairie Heights over again. I'm hoping I didn't
Yeah, you
rename it
did not.
after.
It's not there.
No, I'm saying I'm hoping I didn't rename it. I'm looking at it right now
Oh,
on the
okay.
desktop.
I was gonna say, I
Yeah.
didn't get in.
The athletic director is doubly good because he's in there twice.
He is in there.
And I did
twice.
check, it's the same file, so.
Yes.
Yeah.
So maybe file stream would help you so you could drag instead of upload.
Well, there are only 3 things on the mine update, so why don't you say we did the end of the year assessment
Oh,
on enrollments 119.
also, sorry, I have a bunch. Jasmine, I see that there was no violations of the PHE in the update. Good job, thank you. Thank you to all the staff for doing that, and then just one here at the high school. So thank you for all of your hard work in the food services department and keeping everything up. where it
I
needs
love
to
your
be.
report. I love your report.
I made it bigger this time, you see it?
1/2 of a font point, maybe.
Otherwise it would be double pages.
Okay, that's fine. But yes, a lot of information in your update. I very much appreciate it.
And it's electronic, so if you need to go 2 or 3 pages, we all look at it electronic.
Okay.
So my older eyes,
Have we been getting a lot more people filling out their frame reduced stuff?
We're slowly getting there. We're getting there. A lot of them are just, it's, that
Yeah.
$30 and then it puts them over.
Right.
Well, maybe if you just refresh your computer, because I
I know,
am,
right?
I am really sure the Prairie Heights one is in there.
It was. What was?
Under information.
Where's
updates.
where? Talking about public packet or board packet?
No, in your board packet. Maybe you just needed to refresh.
I'll refresh it.
Hold on. Yes,
It's
it's
in there
there. It's there.
Modified December
refreshed.
19th.
Can't find it, always refresh.
Good
Modified
job.
December 19th.
I still don't have it.
Anyway, anything else on information updates?
No, and thank you for your update and all the information that you put in yours. It's appreciated.
Oh, thank you.
And all of your work
Aye.
and meeting with the teachers weekly.
We're working on it.
That's pretty good. You
Can-
modified that a minute into the future. Your clock's off.
Yeah, wait a minute, in the future? I have this really fast car outside.
Is it a DeLorean?
Yeah, I loved your update. I like how you really, what's the right word? You're probably not telling us everything that you have planned and going on, but what you are telling us, it makes it easy for me to follow, put it that way.
Yeah,
50,000 foot overview.
Dissertations aren't what I do yet, so there's so much, just the highlight.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Treehouse view is great.
thank you.
Yes.
don't
Can
think
I
you
add one thing that I didn't get to add in the board
You
report?
certainly may, sir.
Permission to approach?
Of course. Denied.
Well, what did you deny?
I know, right?
Thank you.
Okay, the color.
Oh, the booster.
So, we
Awesome.
finished November 14 with a segregation of MOU from boosters. So,
Mhm.
what we did agree to was transparency and a monthly report from them. So,
These have students' name on them, so you can't give them out.
Oh, then you can't present it to us.
um,
As soon as we see it's public.
okay.
Really?
I don't have my reading
Unless it's a
glasses.
consent agenda item, right?
Well, I'm enjoying them.
So in
Looks
other
great.
words,
I like the pie chart.
it can go in consent agenda?
Sure it can,
Yeah.
Yes,
in the future.
and then it's protected.
You put in all this
Okay.
work.
Well,
Well, it's
Talk about
great.
it though.
boosters
I
did.
appreciate
Yeah.
it.
That's great though.
Talk to it though. I'll keep mine just as my
Uh,
principal superintendent copy.
Okay,
Oh.
so,
Lovely.
I'll see you after the meeting. I'm just kidding.
so we will get on, they will get on agenda then, so they can present, because that's what we agreed to. How do we do that?
You could also put it with your principal report.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh,
I'd
wait,
like
no.
for them to be present to do, not part of me, because they are separate entities.
Then let's not do the student portion. That part, the student portion with names, but the other is important for them to know. 'Cause this is just saying where it's going towards. You could
Yes.
just put a cluster.
But I know that that was a big concern of ours.
It was.
It was a
So
big
therefore, they
concern.
wanted to make sure that it was being broken up in what
Yeah.
amounts and what groups.
Could you put a,
I
Well,
like
the-
to black it out.
Well, the one you give for us, you take a Sharpie,
Yeah.
Put
Well,
a
what-
class-
redact
well,
that.
or
for-
put a
You,
class?
you were about to say something. Make it an information update?
Put a
What you were gonna
class,
say?
Well,
black out that, just put a class.
well,
instead
there
of
was,
name.
I was gonna
Are you gonna
suggest
say,
a
like,
few things, just add an agenda item to
Yeah,
the
there you
board
Right.
for this as an update every month,
Yes.
and then they can come up
Then
and
they
speak.
Just like that.
That eliminate, that addresses your concern,
Yeah.
right?
Can
And
we do
then
that?
their report
Yeah.
can go in the consent agenda so that if we wanted to see the students, right, I don't know that we really need to, we really.
I
need
just wanna see what.
But that was a
But-
big
Group
concern.
it in
Right,
groups.
but
was-
so
Yeah,
that
you can
maybe
actually
it
go
could
and
be
do that.
broken
Here's the
down.
total, here's how
Yes.
many hours they worked,
Yep.
here's.
Here's
Yep.
the class of 2018.
Right, like
total.
numbers per grade. So, you know,
That's in there.
we've got 8 students in the 9th grade that did
Well, this
this.
does not break down per name. She has that, she put it together for presentation. We have that per name, but it's not part of this report.
I was just trying to see, how do we, if we wanted to
Well, she could, if she
get
built
by
that,
the
if she
student
built that
name.
report, she could just take the student names out
You
of
know
the
what I mean?
report.
Yeah.
There are
If you
no
wanted it
student
broken down, you,
names.
Right
instead
here.
it would just be
On
nine.
this
Yeah,
Far
on
right
the
side,
far
they're
right.
Far right.
Oh, yes, there
It
was.
got-
She can just take those names out and give us those totals.
Yep,
Just
just
give
take
them
the
that.
names and then give us the group.
You know what I mean, and
So-
then at least we're still.
Information updates, then we can get boosters in there and they present, yes?
Yes.
Okay.
And since
That
you're-
is
I
great
mean,
though, can you relay that to them? I don't,
Yeah.
is there
Since
anyone?
you work intimately with them, just, when
Yeah.
you turn in your report, just turn in their report.
Okay, and call it that.
You can post it at the same time.
Very good, I will.
Good.
They,
Great job.
they have done some amazing works. We are up to $2,000 in scholarship money that goes to the building. They have, just the tournament alone had $500 that we had no sponsors. In the early part of the year, we were bucking tradition and the junior classes, you're taking it. Well, now we've gotten to the point where nobody wants to come in, so Mr. Williams and I put together, and it was his idea, said, guess what, if you're not gonna take advantage of this opportunity, we'll assign it to you. And by the time we left today after staff meeting, many of those positions were filled, it's just they don't know. And the opportunity and what they're doing is, this is going all the time now. Join us, won't you?
Yeah.
Great.
And the money is coming in.
Well,
So
Great.
we
I
just,
definitely appreciate all of your guys' work, working with the Booster Club throughout those growing pains, because I know that that can definitely sometimes be a deterrent, especially in a small district. So thank you for
Yeah,
we're
sticking
getting
with
that. You guys really
it and
pulled that
working
off.
through all those growing pains.
we're getting
And,
that.
same with the Booster Club, just thank you guys.
They also wanted to present the Mountain View Electric grant we got
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
to do, where
I
you
Is
did
that
not.
the $10,000?
5.
Okay.
So part of what I
Oh,
wanted
because I know where
to
the
do
other side.
was get this place, our mantra is grow Hanover. So we said, what is out here? And we couldn't answer that question. So we went to Boosters and said, I want a theater. And they got a grant for a projector, and we're gonna get a screen, and we're gonna hold Friday night movie nights out
Oh,
here and
that's
concessions.
awesome.
It happened, it's done, we've been blessed, that they're gonna come out. They wanted you to know, January 22, and I'll put this in my next board report, is when they're gonna receive check. They would like to invite
Oh,
anybody
great.
and
Yes.
everybody
Is it gonna
to
be at a
receive
game?
that. No,
Or-
it's gonna be, MWA facility, MWVA facility on Woodman Road.
Oh,
in
okay.
Fountain.
Yeah.
Oh, I know
On the
that is.
22nd, and I said, absolutely,
Yeah.
I'll be there with you for the snap and shot. But we're getting a projector. I talked to Dr. Schmidt about this. We're gonna make Friday night movie nights happen here year round. And
Sweet.
so-
Thank you.
We did have to take some of our money, which was in our budget anyway, to help create a little bit of a match for that 5. So the total, how much was the total?
10,
Okay, so it was 10 on the mark then.
yeah.
I can take in the one with the 5.
So we're gonna
Should've
get
given
a
them a little
big old
free,
screen
wouldn't
and boosters will do concessions, kids can work, but there'll be something here for the community.
Hey, question on that. If a kid is in sports and can't work, can somebody work for that kid?
Parent, yes.
Not just parent, what about one of their brothers and sisters?
If it's designated adult, quote unquote, where we're finding
Oh,
can't
I see.
happen, is parent and student together cannot happen. Because there is conflict.
Yeah, you don't want that.
Which ones do we listen to and how, and it's not bad, it's just,
One or
they
the
have
other.
procedures they've gotta follow with food
Yeah.
and counting money. And it's great training, it's the extended classroom, but parent and student cannot be together. Parent, student, separate, absolutely.
Nice.
Yeah.
One or the other. I like it.
Gotcha.
Does that help answer?
That's
It
So,
does.
I apologize. I'll get
What
this.
about two parents at the same time?
Two parents at the same time? Absolutely, not a problem.
Okay.
As long as their last name's Swayze.
Thanks.
Okay.
That'll fill the
Thank
whole,
you.
that'll fill the whole roster for the year.
No,
We have some large clients out here, you might get.
Well, we do.
Okay, anything else on information updates? No, okay, brings us to adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
You know, other business?
Motion. Oh, I'm sorry, any other business? I closed my notebook, my bad. Any other business?
I do not.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting's adjourned.
Coach, you got us for the middle school game. Okay.
Is there another page?
10th, 11th, which, it's their last game. Your home game,
Uh-huh.
the boys are doing concessions, there's a fundraiser.
Oh, you guys are?
Our shooting jerseys.
We're probably still on the air.
Why not? You know, it's mandatory. Oh, we gotta sign. Oh.
Oh, we have to find the parts.
Yeah, did they come in yet?
No, they're on
We're coming over here at 10:30, right?
Yeah, we're leaving at 10:30.
You're not gonna need to-
Can you go get those?
Oh, you know, I do need to get, I've never sent anybody out with a card.
Oh, man. I should have brought my stamp. I got a
Oh,
name
does the
stamp. I
city
should
have
have
a
brought my
stamp?
name stamp.
You have a stamp there?
I do, I got a signature stamp. I was in a job where they made me sign every work order that came in, and I said, heck with that.
You know what I could do?
I got to get my signature stamp.
So you stamp an initial or just stamp?
Save them in a Word document.
Because,
Part of the printer.
Nobody ever touched that thing.
That's not.
My director had a hand stamp. She said, why can't I'll say, go out of this place. I don't mind my initials are next to the stamp. Because she said, stamp and initials, because, just a stamp took a while. And I was like,
I get paid, I think I paid like $4 this year, because I only got like one store extra. I'll be right back.
But if it's not on there, I'll check it on.
I know where, there's two places actually.
There's the front door here.
Yeah, they give you 60 days after the order ends to post.
We got Christmas, but I will be in
That was a
office
year.
Thursday and Friday.
It's a year, 2 months ago, so I think we're.
Ah, you got my you got my cell phone. What's up with that? Yeah.
No, I can't go.
Thank you so much.
I know, because of how it's worded, he's trying to find something.
Good night.
Is the thing off? The camera thing off?
Oh,
Called the quarterly financial.
Charles did it.
Nothing since September.